E-hailing operators have urged local and provincial government structures to address the backlog in the issuing of their operating permits. Yesterday, they staged a march to Tshwane to express their frustration over the impounding of their cars. Now, according to bylaws, of the Tshwane Metro, operators without valid permits that have been issued by the Provincial Transport Department face the risk of having their vehicles impounded and must pay a fee, let's call it, to have those cars released. Let's get you government's response to this. Bring in Lesiba Mpya, who's a spokesperson for the Gauteng Roads and Transport Department and joins us now via our videolink. Lesiba, thanks very much indeed for making time. Yesterday, we heard a mouthful of criticism leveled against the state. The first of which is that the backlog is something that is actually not new. And in fact, it is the e-hailing drivers that are now having to pay the cost, as it were, of government inefficiency.
Thank you very much, and good morning to your viewers. I think in terms of the sector's own conceding is the fact that there has been some confusion with regards to particularly the ignorance with regards to the law. Before a person acquires a vehicle, there's a prerequisite. It is important that they get approval to operate, or they put in an application, and that application gets approved by the provincial regulatory entity so that that person can operate. And beyond that is a process whereby government, adjudicates on those particular applications. So in terms of the industry, which is cars getting impounded, those are the prerequisites as envisaged in the National Land Transport Act, that any person who operates on the public roads for an exchange of a reward has got to be compliant in terms of the operating licenses. In terms of the backlog, yes, they are quite correct, and we've considered to the fact that there is a backlog in terms of the applications. There are applications that have been approved. However, that process is extremely slow. And much as we have considered, or the MEC has considered to that, she has taken it upon herself to actually bring all industry players, e-hailers, taxis, bus operators. Yesterday, she met with scholar transport operators to put together a task team that meets every second Friday with the department in each and every region to try and push back the backlog. And part of what causes the backlog is applications that are not complete, applications that are incorrect, and that is exactly what causes the backlog that we see in the department.
I doubt everybody, though, who's waiting for their permits is doing so on the basis that their applications are incomplete or have errors. The question that's obviously going to come up is, how much more time does the department think is fair to allow for this backlog to be cleared in a context where livelihoods are at stake?
Yeah, I've heard from the industry that this backlog or the issue of permits started 2 years ago. The Act was enacted in 2009. And from 2009, it was actually a product of putting together the NLLTA, the GBBRTA in Gauteng in some instances, and it became one. It became the National Land Transport Act. So the issue that the permit issue started 2 years ago is far from the truth. What has been happening is that with regards to the e-hailing, they have been operating under a practice note whilst they are waiting for the amendment of the legislation, the NLTA, to come into effect. And last year, the president signed that amendment into law. We are currently waiting on the minister to conclude the process of regulations. And the industry knows very well that if you would have made an application, the issue comes when people make a sale of vehicles, put them on the road without operating licenses. And after buying those particular vehicles, when they are now operating on the roads, it is then that they make application. They are putting the cart before the horse, and that is what should not have happened. And as the Department of Roads or as government, we are going to be implementing law enforcement to the latter because we want to encourage people to be compliant. But I think it is important to also note that the regulations that are now into effect, that we are now waiting for from the minister, might have found people already operating. And I think that in terms of a government that listens, we do have those consultative meetings with the sector on a regular basis. And I think it can only be fair that we meet each other halfway. But it is important to wait for the process to its finality and not operate outside of the confines of the law. Yes. As government, we cannot circumvent that particular process.
Absolutely. And in fact, I'd put it to you, Lesiba, that's not the contention here. Many of the people who spoke to the SABC said they are more than willing to comply and in fact are willing to go through the process. The nub of the issue is how long they are reasonably expected to wait. And that is essentially the question I'm asking you. As you and I speak this Friday, for example, if somebody has applied for a permit, everything is in order, how much time should they expect to wait before they can finally go ahead and purchase the car so that they can put bread on the table?
Yes. You would have heard that I said that the MEC put together a task team. She has given it a timeline of 60 days to push back the backlog. So the thinking is that through this particular task team, beyond the period of 60 days, there should be some level of normality. And that is what we are appealing to the sector, to the industry, to say that working together, we can be able to push back this particular backlog. So to respond to your question, one of the things that I cannot be able to say here is when will a person's application be approved, because these applications are treated in sectorally and they are approved in terms of this task team that the MEC would have put together. So the process is underway to speed up the turnaround time at which an application is made, as well as at which the application is approved. That is the purpose of the task team, to speed up the turnaround time so that people do not have to wait for too long for their operating license. But what is not correct is that a person is already owning a vehicle, has put it on the road, yes, is non-compliant. When law enforcement comes across that person, they would have to do what they are supposed to do.
Yes, that point I think you've made several times, and again, nobody is pushing back against that at all. When was this task team put together, Lesiba?
The task team was started at the end of December, around the 12th of December last year. The task team has met a number of times. The task team is going to be meeting next week, Friday, and details are going to be communicated to several operators or operator representatives, because we are doing a multiplicity of focus in terms of the taxi industry, the scholar transport industry, the e-hailing service providers. So that is going to be happening next week, Friday.
All right. So if my maths is anything to go by, we should start seeing a difference by the end of February then, if the task team is actually up to the task at hand, at least insofar as the clearing of this backlog is concerned.
Absolutely. We should start seeing a huge difference by then.
All right. And we'll hold you to that. Lesiba Mpya, thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. Lesiba is a spokesperson for the Gauteng Road and Transport Department.